A billionaire catches twin sisters trying to steal food at a grocery store. Touched by their situation, he leaves them in his mother's care. When he comes back from work, he finds one of the twins holding a photo that will change his life forever. The silence of the nearly empty grocery store was suddenly broken by the metallic sound of cans falling onto the floor. Michael Anderson, impeccable in his Armani suit, froze in the middle of the aisle. It was Sunday night, and he had only stopped by to pick up a bottle of wine for dinner with his mother, Margaret. "Grace, watch out!" A child's hushed whisper, tinged with panic, echoed through the aisle. Michael turned slowly, his blue eyes scanning the area. There, partially hidden behind a stack of canned peas, were two girls. Identical twins, he noticed, no more than 4 years old. One of them, the one who had apparently knocked over the cans, had her eyes wide with fear. The other, probably the one who had whispered, was frantically trying to gather the scattered items. "Hey," Michael called gently, taking a cautious step toward them. "Are you all right?" The girls froze like tiny deer caught in headlights. The one collecting the cans stood up quickly, positioning herself protectively in front of her sister. We didn't do anything," she stammered, her chin trembling slightly. It was then that Michael noticed. The pockets of the girls' worn-out jackets were bulging. A piece of bread peeked out from one girl's collar. His heart tightened as he realized these children, so small, were trying to steal food. "Are you two here by yourselves?" he asked gently, crouching down to their eye level. The girls exchanged nervous glances but remained silent. The one in front, the braver one, he noted, pressed her lips together, clearly reluctant to answer. "My name is Michael," he introduced himself, trying to offer a reassuring smile. "What are your names?" The brave girl hesitated, but then responded, "I'm Emma. This is my sister Grace." Grace, the one who had knocked over the cans, let out a muffled sob. Michael noticed her knee was slightly scraped and bleeding, likely hurt in the fall. "Grace is hurt," he observed gently. "Can I take a look?" Emma hesitated, then reluctantly nodded. Michael approached slowly, pulling a handkerchief from his pocket. "This might sting a little, okay?" he warned, carefully cleaning Grace's knee. The girl bit her lip, but didn't cry. While tending to the scrape, Michael noticed details he had missed at first glance. The worn-out shoes, the slightly dirty clothes, the hair in need of a good comb. These girls were clearly not receiving proper care. "Are you hungry?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer. Emma gave a hesitant nod, her eyes filling with unshed tears. The sight tore at Michael's heart. "It's all right," he assured them. "You're not in trouble. How about this? I'll buy you something to eat, and then we can talk for a bit. Sound good?" The twins looked at each other, having a silent exchange. Finally, Emma nodded. "Okay," she agreed. "But it has to be quick. We can't take too long." Michael guided the girls through the store, watching as they selected sandwiches, fruit and juice with a seriousness far beyond their years. Children this young shouldn't have to worry about what they'll eat. After paying for the groceries, including the items the girls had tried to steal, Michael took them to a bench outside the store. The late afternoon sun cast a golden light over them, highlighting their blonde hair and green eyes that seemed too large for their thin faces. As the twins ate ravenously, Michael gently tried to find out more about their situation, but the girls remained evasive, exchanging anxious looks at each question. It was clear they were scared and had been told not to talk to strangers. Michael felt his world spin. How could there be children going through this just a few miles from his mansion? "Emma, Grace," he said softly when they finished eating. "You can't stay on your own. It's dangerous, and you need help." Panic returned to the girl's eyes. "No," Emma exclaimed. "We can't go with you. We have to go back." Michael felt his heart clench. Before he could think twice and the words left his mouth, What if you both came with me? Just for tonight. My mother loves children. She'd be happy to look after you while we figure out what to do." The twins exchanged glances again, that silent communication that seemed well beyond their years. "Can we trust him?" Grace's look seemed to ask. Emma studied Michael for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Okay," she said, her voice small but resolute. "But just for tonight. And tomorrow, we have to go back." Michael felt a huge wave of relief. "Of course," he promised. "Tomorrow we'll sort everything out." As he led the girls to his sports car, realizing too late he had no car seats for them, Michael wondered what on earth he was getting himself into. His mother would probably think he was crazy for bringing home 2 children he didn't know. But then Grace yawned, a sound so innocent and trusting it made his heart melt. And Emma, despite her protective stance, leaned her head against his arm as he helped them into the car. In that moment, Michael knew he had done the right thing. He didn't know how, but he was going to help these girls, and maybe, just maybe, they would help him too, filling a void in his life he hadn't even realized was there. As he drove toward his mother's mansion, Michael couldn't imagine how this chance encounter at the grocery store was about to change his life forever. The soft purr of Michael's Aston Martin ceased as he pulled into the circular driveway of the Anderson mansion. The porch light switched on automatically, illuminating the imposing facade of the house. In the back seat, Emma and Grace gazed wide-eyed, their small hands clasped together. "Wow," Grace whispered, her voice barely audible. "Is it a castle?" Michael couldn't hold back a smile. "Not exactly, but my mother sometimes acts like a queen." He had barely finished the sentence when the front door opened, revealing Margaret Anderson. At 55, she still had the elegant poise and sharp gaze that had made her one of the most respected socialites in the city. Her face, usually composed, twisted in confusion at the sight of Michael helping 2 disheveled girls out of the car. "Michael," she called, descending the front steps. "What's going on?" Michael took a deep breath, preparing to explain. "Mom, these are Emma and Grace. They need our help tonight." Margaret frowned, but then her gaze fell on the girls. The twins shrank slightly under her scrutiny, Grace hiding partly behind Emma. Something in the children's eyes must have moved Margaret, because her expression softened immediately. She knelt down, ignoring her expensive dress pressing against the gravel. "Hello, sweethearts," she said gently. "You must be cold. How about we go inside and have some hot chocolate?" Emma, ever the protector, hesitated. But Grace, enticed by the mention of hot chocolate, took a small step forward. "Will there be marshmallows?" she asked timidly. Margaret smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face. "Of course, dear. As many marshmallows as you want." That seemed to break the ice. The girls followed Margaret inside, with Michael right behind them, carrying the small, worn-out bag that Grace had refused to let go of. In the spacious, immaculate kitchen, Margaret moved efficiently, preparing hot chocolate while Michael helped the girls climb onto the high stools at the counter. The rich, sweet aroma soon filled the air, making the twins' stomachs growl audibly. "Here you go," Margaret said, placing 2 steaming mugs in front of the girls. Each was topped with a generous handful of marshmallows. "Careful, it's hot." Emma and Grace picked up the mugs reverently, as though they were precious treasures. At the first sip, their eyes widened in delight. "This is the best chocolate in the world," Grace declared, already sporting a chocolate mustache above her upper lip. Margaret laughed, a soft, melodious sound that made the girls smile shyly. "I'm glad you like it. Now, how about a warm bath while I fix something for you to eat?" The twins exchanged apprehensive looks. We have to leave soon," Emma said, hesitant. Margaret frowned, casting a questioning glance at Michael. He gave a subtle gesture, indicating he would explain later. "Well, as long as you're here, let's make you comfortable, okay?" Margaret said gently. "I promise no one will make you do anything you don't want to." After a moment's hesitation, the girls agreed. Margaret led them upstairs to one of the many guest bathrooms. Michael followed, carrying clean towels and plush robes. "Oh, Grace," Margaret exclaimed softly upon seeing the girl's injured knee. "We'll take care of that after your bath, all right?" Grace nodded timidly, still clinging to her worn-out bag. "Sweetheart," Margaret said gently, "you can leave your bag out here while you bathe. I promise no one will touch it." Grace bit her lip, clearly reluctant. Emma stepped in. "It's okay, Grace," she whispered. "We can trust them." With one last hesitant glance, Grace handed the bag to Michael. He placed it carefully on a nearby chair, where the girls could see it through the slightly open bathroom door. While Margaret helped the twins with their bath, Michael went downstairs to the kitchen, his mind awhirl with questions. Who were these girls? Where were their parents? And what was in that little bag that was so important to Grace? Half an hour later, two clean and sweet-smelling girls wearing oversized t-shirts as nightgowns came down the stairs, hand in hand with Margaret. Their freshly washed and combed blonde hair shone under the soft light of the living room. "Look at you," Michael smiled. "You look like real little princesses." Grace giggled, her first giggle that he had heard. Emma, though still cautious, looked more at ease. Margaret guided them to the dining room table, where plates of mac and cheese, classic comfort food, awaited. The girls ate eagerly, displaying surprisingly polite manners for such young children. As they ate, Margaret and Michael exchanged glances. There were so many questions, so many worries. But they both knew this wasn't the time to push. After dinner, with the girls struggling to keep their eyes open, Margaret led them to one of the guest bedrooms. "You can stay here tonight," she said, helping them climb onto the large king-size bed. "If you need anything, just call." Grace grabbed Margaret's hand. Can you tell us a story?" The request caught Margaret by surprise, but her face lit up with a warm smile. "Of course, dear. How about Cinderella?" While Margaret told the story, her gentle voice filling the room, Michael watched from the doorway. He saw the exact moment the girls fell asleep, their small hands still clasped together. Margaret tiptoed out of the room, closing the door quietly behind her. She looked at Michael, her eyes reflecting a mix of concern and determination. "Now," she said softly, "you're going to tell me exactly what's going on." Michael nodded, guiding his mother back to the living room. As they sat down, his eyes fell on Grace's worn bag, still untouched on the chair where he had left it. Whatever story lay behind these girls, Michael knew his life would never be the same. And somehow, looking at his mother, he knew she felt the same way. The little bag's mystery would have to wait. For now, two small souls were counting on them for safety. And the Andersons had no intention of letting them down. The sun had barely risen when Michael Anderson quietly slipped out of the mansion. He cast one last glance at the window of the room where Emma and Grace slept, his heart heavy at the decision to leave Auntie, even temporarily. Margaret had promised to take care of the girls and try to learn more about their situation. The workday passed in a blur. Michael found himself unable to focus on the meetings and spreadsheets that normally consumed his attention. His thoughts kept returning to the two little blondes who had so unexpectedly entered his life. By the time he managed to leave the office, it was already past 7 in the evening. Michael drove home faster than usual, eager to see how the girls were doing. The mansion was strangely quiet when he entered, slipping off his shoes to keep silent. Soft voices drifted from the library. Michael approached quietly, stopping at the entrance. The scene before him made him freeze. Emma and Grace were sitting on the plush carpet, surrounded by children's books. Margaret was kneeling beside them, helping Grace hold one of the larger books. But it was what Emma was holding in her small hands that made Michael's heart stop. It was a photograph. A photo of a radiant young woman, smiling broadly as she held two newborn babies. Sarah. Michael's world began to spin. He recognized that face, that smile. Sarah Miller. His high school sweetheart, the girl who had been his best friend and first true love. "Michael!" Margaret's voice pulled him out of his stupor. All three turned to him, surprised by his silent arrival. Michael took a hesitant step into the library. His eyes locked on the photo in Emma's hands. That's Sarah," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma clutched the photo to her chest, her eyes widening. Grace edged closer to her sister, protectively. Michael knelt slowly, trying not to frighten the girls. Do you know Sarah?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Emma and Grace exchanged looks, another silent exchange. It was Grace who finally spoke, her voice small but firm. "She's our mum." Michael's world seemed to collapse. Sarah, a mother, twins. Everything fell into place in a shattering realization. Memories flooded his mind. Sarah and him, carefree teenagers, sitting in the school bleachers talking about their dreams. Prom night, dancing all evening, promising that distance wouldn't separate them. The final kiss at the airport before Michael left for Europe for college. And then, the gradual silence. Calls became fewer, emails took longer. Life led them down different paths until they lost contact completely. "Where's Sarah?" The words left his mouth before he could stop them, tinged with urgent desperation that surprised even him. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma hugged the photo tighter, burying her face in it. Grace bit her lip, her eyes filling with unshed tears. Sensing the rising tension, Margaret intervened softly. "Girls, it's all right. No one will force you to talk about anything you don't want to. Michael is just surprised to see Sarah after all this time." Michael took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. He sat on the floor, keeping a respectful distance from the twins. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "I didn't mean to scare you, it's just, I knew Sarah a long time ago." "We were very close." Grace lifted her face, her green eyes so like Sarah's, studying Michael curiously. "You were Mommy's friend?" Michael nodded, a sad smile forming on his lips. "Yes, I was. We went to high school together. She is a very special person." Emma, always protective, studied Michael carefully. "Why didn't you ever visit us before, if you were Mum's friend?" The innocent question hit Michael like a punch. I didn't know about you," he admitted. "Sarah and I lost touch a few years ago after I left to study abroad." Margaret, who had stayed silent, observing the exchange, finally spoke up. "Michael, maybe it's better if we discuss this privately." But Michael barely heard her. His mind whirled with possibilities, with questions. Sarah, a mother of twins. Sarah, whom he hadn't seen in over 5 years. What had happened? "Girls," he said softly, "I know you're probably confused, but I promise we want to help. Anything you can tell us about Sarah, where she might be." Grace let out a muffled sob, burying her face in Emma's shoulder. Emma wrapped an arm around her sister, her eyes taking on a determined gleam. "We can't tell," she said firmly. "We promised Mom." Michael felt his heart clench again. What had happened to Sarah? Why did the girls seem so scared? Margaret rose and, extending her hands to the twins, "Come on, girls, let's make a snack. You can bring the photo if you want." The girls stood hesitantly, Emma still holding the photograph. As they followed Margaret to the kitchen, Michael remained seated on the library floor, surrounded by children's books and Sarah's almost tangible presence. He picked up one of the books, a fairy tale Sarah had once loved. He remembered how she dreamed of becoming a writer, how her eyes shone when she talked about the stories she wanted to tell the world. What had happened to those dreams? How had Sarah become a single mother of twins, and why were the girls alone and frightened? Michael stood up slowly, his eyes roaming over the library shelves. So many books, so many stories. But the one he wanted most to know was Sarah's story, and that of the twins. At that moment, the sound of childish laughter drifted from the kitchen. Michael looked that way, feeling a wave of protectiveness unlike anything he had felt before. Whatever mystery lay behind Sarah and the twins, he was determined to unravel it. And more than that, he was determined to protect Emma and Grace, no matter the cost. With one last glance at the photo of Sarah, left on the carpet by Emma, Michael headed to the kitchen. The mystery would have to wait. For now, there were 2 scared little girls who needed comfort and safety. And maybe, just maybe, by helping them, he could finally fix the mistake he had made years ago when he let Sarah slip out of his life. Distance and time had separated them once, but fate seemed to be giving them a second chance. As he walked to the kitchen, Michael made a silent promise. He would find Sarah, He would find out what had happened. And above all, he would do whatever it took to keep Emma and Grace safe. The smell of freshly baked cookies greeted him in the kitchen, along with the sound of the girls' laughter. For a moment, Michael allowed himself to imagine a future in which that laughter was a constant presence in his life. A future where he, Sarah, and the twins could be a family. It was a distant dream, he knew, but for the first time in years, Michael felt a flicker of hope in his heart. The path ahead would be difficult and full of mysteries, but he was ready to face it. For Sarah, for Emma and Grace, and perhaps, just maybe, for the family they could become. Morning had barely broken when Michael Anderson was already in his home office, red-eyed from a restless night, staring at his computer screen. After the shocking revelation of the previous night, he could barely close his eyes, his mind churning with unanswered questions and frightening possibilities. "Sarah Miller," he murmured, typing the name into the search engine for the 100th time. As always, the results were frustratingly irrelevant. It was as though Sarah had vanished entirely from the digital world. Michael leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment. Instantly, memories of high school days flooded his mind. Flashback, Sarah laughing, her golden hair shining in the school courtyard. "Come on, Michael, we're going to be late for literature class," he ran after her, grinning. "Since when do you care about being on time?" She stopped, turning to him with a mischievous smile. "Ever since Mr. Johnson promised to talk about Jane Austen today. You know she's my favorite." Michael laughed, taking her hand. "How could I forget? You've only been talking about it for weeks." End of flashback. The sound of his phone ringing pulled him back to the present. It was Margaret. "The girls are asking for you," his mother said without preamble. "They seem anxious." Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm trying to find any lead on Sarah, Mom. Anything." "I know, dear, but these little ones need stability right now, and you need more information. Why not try talking to them again?" He knew his mother was right. "Okay, I'll be home in an hour." Hanging up, Michael made one last desperate search. That's when something caught his eye. A small obituary from 3 months ago. Elizabeth Thompson, 68, passed away peacefully at home. Thompson, the same last name the girls had mentioned. Heart pounding, Michael grabbed his things and rushed out of the office. At the Anderson mansion, Margaret was in the kitchen with Emma and Grace, trying to distract them with cookie making. The girls seemed more relaxed than the day before, but there was still an underlying tension in their small shoulders. "Look who's here," Margaret announced as Michael walked in. The twins turned around, flour on their faces and clothes. For a moment, Michael could see Sarah in them so clearly his heart ached. "Hi, girls," he said gently, approaching. "Can I help you?" Emma nodded hesitantly, while Grace offered a small smile. As he helped them cut the cookie dough into stars and hearts, Michael tried a careful approach. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about the photo you showed me yesterday," he began. "It made me remember when Sarah and I were friends in school." The twins exchanged glances, but remained silent. "She was always so kind and funny," Michael continued. "I remember one time when..." Flashback. The school library was quiet, except for the occasional sound of pages turning. Michael was focused on his chemistry book when something hit his head. Looking down, he saw a paper airplane. He unfolded it, finding a message in Sarah's neat handwriting. "Hey, nerd. How about an ice cream break? My brain is melting from all this Shakespeare." He looked up, spotting Sarah 2 tables away, feigning innocence. When their eyes met, she winked, making him stifle a laugh. End of flashback. "She always knew how to make me laugh," Michael concluded, returning to the present. Grace, who had been listening intently, spoke for the first time. "Mommy makes us laugh too. She tells the best stories." Michael felt his heart constrict. "I'm sure she does. You must miss her a lot." The girls fell silent again, but Michael noticed tears in Emma's eyes. "Girls," he said softly, "I know you promised not to tell, but we're really worried about your mom. Anything you can tell us would help so much." Emma bit her lip, clearly torn. It was Grace who finally spoke. Mrs. Thompson said Mom is sleeping. That she'll wake up soon, but we don't know when. Michael exchanged an alarmed look with Margaret. Sleeping? Do you know where she is? Emma shook her head. Mrs. Thompson didn't tell us. She said it was safer that way. Michael's mind whirled. Was Sarah in a coma? Hospitalized? And why the secrecy? Margaret, sensing his growing agitation, stepped in. How about we put these cookies in the oven? Then we can watch a movie together. As the girls busied themselves with the task, Margaret pulled Michael aside. Calm down, she whispered. I know you want answers, but pushing the girls too hard will only frighten them. Michael nodded, trying to steady himself. You're right, but Mom, what if Sarah is really in danger? What if... Margaret placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. One step at a time, dear. First, we need to earn the girls' complete trust. The rest will come with time. Looking over at Emma and Grace, who were now giggling while placing the cookie tray in the oven, Michael felt a surge of protectiveness. Regardless of what had happened to Sarah, these girls needed him now. Okay, he said, taking a deep breath. We'll do it your way. Joining the twins to choose a movie, Michael made a silent promise. He would find out what happened to Sarah, no matter the cost. But first, he would ensure Emma and Grace felt safe and loved. Sarah's mystery would have to wait. For now, there were cookies to bake, movies to watch, and most importantly, 2 young lives to protect. The social services office was a sober place, with beige walls and artificial plants vainly attempting to add some life. Michael Anderson shifted in the uncomfortable chair, his gaze fixed on the closed door in front of him. After days of fruitless searching, he had finally managed to set up a meeting with Elizabeth Thompson, the social worker handling Sarah Miller's case. The door opened, and a middle-aged woman with graying hair and kind eyes emerged. Mr. Anderson, please come in. Michael rose, his heart pounding. Upon entering the small office, he noticed the stacks of folders and the tired look in Mrs. Thompson's eyes. She gestured for him to take a seat, then settled behind her desk. Mr. Anderson, I understand you're here about Sarah Miller and her daughters, she began, her tone professional yet concerned. Michael nodded eagerly. Yes, I'm taking care of Emma and Grace right now. I found them alone and... Mrs. Thompson raised a hand, interrupting. Before we continue, I need to understand your relationship with the family. How exactly did you become involved in this situation? Michael took a deep breath, knowing he needed to earn the social worker's trust. Sarah and I were friends in high school. We lost contact years ago, but I found the girls by chance. They were alone, frightened. I couldn't just ignore them. Mrs. Thompson's eyes softened slightly. I see. And the girls, are they all right? Yes, Michael assured her. They're safe with my mother. But Mrs. Thompson, please, I need to know what happened to Sarah. The social worker let out a long sigh, appearing to weigh her options. At last, she spoke. Mr. Anderson, normally, I wouldn't be able to share this information, but given the circumstances, Sarah is currently in the ICU at Central Hospital. Michael's world seemed to stop. In the ICU? What happened? There was a car accident about 2 weeks ago, Mrs. Thompson explained quietly. Sarah was driving home from work when her car veered off the road and rolled over. She's been in a coma ever since. Michael felt like the air had been sucked out of his lungs. A coma, he whispered in disbelief. Mrs. Thompson nodded sadly. The doctors are doing everything they can, but the situation is serious, Mr. Anderson. And the girls? Michael asked, mind spinning. Do they know? Not completely, the social worker answered. We've tried to shield them from the full truth, given their age. They know their mother is asleep in the hospital, but they don't understand the gravity of it. Michael ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Why were they alone when I found them? Wasn't anyone caring for them? Mrs. Thompson looked uncomfortable. There were complications. The neighbor who was looking after them fell ill suddenly, and before we could step in and, well, the girls were alone for a short time. I see, Michael murmured. though 1,000 questions still whirled in his mind. "Mr. Anderson," Mrs. Thompson said, leaning forward, "now that you're involved, I need to know your intentions. These girls need stability and care." Michael met her gaze firmly, his voice resolute as he replied, "I'm going to take care of them. I'll be there for Sarah. I'll do whatever it takes to keep this family safe and together." Mrs. Thompson studied him for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Very well, I'll need to do a home visit, evaluate the situation. But for now, Easton, it seems the girls are in good hands." When Michael left the office minutes later, his mind was in turmoil. Sarah, in a coma, the girls, scared and confused, and he, suddenly at the center of it all. As he walked to his car, Michael made a silent promise. He would be there for Emma and Grace, giving them all the love and security he could. And he would do everything in his power to bring Sarah back. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city. Somewhere, in a hospital room, Sarah was fighting to return to her daughters, and Michael vowed that when she woke, she would find her entire family safe and waiting for her. With renewed determination, he started the car. His next destination was Central Hospital. It was time to see Sarah and begin unraveling the mystery behind her accident. The antiseptic smell of Central Hospital enveloped Michael as soon as he walked through the automatic doors. His heart pounded wildly in his chest, a mix of anxiety and fear of what he was about to face. Mrs. Thompson's words still echoed in his mind. Sarah in a coma, fighting for her life. With hesitant steps, he approached the reception desk. "Sarah Miller," he said shakily. "I'm here to see Sarah Miller." The receptionist typed something into her computer. "Room 307, third floor," she informed him, her eyes softening at the anxious look on his face. "She's in the ICU. Only family members are allowed." Michael swallowed hard. I'm the father of her daughters," he lied, guilt instantly gnawing at him. But he needed to see Sarah. He had to know. The elevator felt painfully slow. When the doors finally opened on the third floor, Michael felt as if he was stepping into another world. The silence was broken only by the steady beeping of monitors and the hushed tones of distant conversations. Room 307. Michael paused outside the door, his heart nearly leaping out of his chest. Through the small glass pane, he could see a motionless figure on the bed surrounded by machines. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. The rhythmic sound of the heart monitor filled his ears. And there, pale and fragile, lay Sarah. Her golden hair, which he had once adored, was spread across the stark white hospital pillow. Tubes and wires seemed to weave around her like a web, connecting her to the machines that kept her alive. "Oh, Sarah," Michael whispered, walking slowly to the bed. He took her limp hand, surprised by how cold it was. "What happened to you?" Almost as if in response to his question, the door opened, and a middle-aged doctor stepped in, a clipboard in hand. "Mr. Anderson," the doctor asked, extending his hand. "Dr. Patel. I'm the neurologist in charge of Sarah's case." Michael shook the doctor's hand mechanically, his eyes never leaving Sarah. How is she?" Dr. Patel sighed, adjusting his glasses. "Ms. Miller's condition is critical but stable. The accident caused severe head trauma, leading to her current coma." Will she wake up?" Michael asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. "It's hard to say," the doctor replied honestly. "The brain is complex, and every coma case is unique. We're monitoring closely, and there are signs of brain activity, which is good. But the time frame for recovery, if it happens, is uncertain." Michael felt his legs weaken, and he leaned against the side of the bed. "What about after? If she wakes up?" "When she wakes," Dr. Patel corrected gently, "we'll have to assess. There could be cognitive or motor deficits, but we won't know until she regains consciousness." Michael nodded, trying to absorb the information. "Her daughters, can they see her?" The doctor hesitated. "Usually, children aren't allowed in the ICU, but given the circumstances, and we may make an exception, it might help Sarah to sense their presence." After Dr. Patel left. Michael remained by Sarah's side, holding her hand and recalling moments from the past. Their first meeting in the school library, afternoons studying, the prom. "I should have fought harder for you," he murmured, a tear sliding down his face. "I shouldn't have let distance come between us, but I'm here now, Sarah, and I'm not going anywhere." The next day, Michael returned to the hospital with Emma and Grace. The girls were nervous, clinging to his hands as they rode the elevator. "Is Mommy still asleep?" Grace asked, her small voice trembling. Michael knelt down. "Yes, sweetheart. Mommy is in a very deep sleep, healing. But she can hear you, so you can talk to her, okay?" Emma, always the protector, tightened her grip on her sister's hand. "We'll help Mommy wake up," she said with determination. As they entered the room, Michael watched the twins carefully. Their eyes went wide at all the machines, and Grace let out a small sob. "It's all right," Michael reassured them, guiding them closer to the bed. "All these machines are helping Mommy get better." Emma was the first to approach. Gently, she touched Sarah's hand. "Mommy," she called softly. "It's us, Emma and Grace. We came to see you." Grace, encouraged by her sister, joined in. "Mommy, we miss you. Please wake up soon." Michael felt his heart break at the sight. The girls kept talking to Sarah, telling her about their days and the drawings they had made for her. At one point, Grace began quietly singing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," a song Sarah used to sing to them. As he watched, Michael noticed something surprising. Sarah's heart monitor registered a slight uptick during the song. "Dr. Patel," Michael called out excitedly when the doctor entered for rounds. "Look!" The neurologist examined the monitors, a small smile forming on his lips. "This is very good," he said. "It shows that, on some level, Sarah is responding to external stimuli. Keep talking to her, singing, but it may help her recovery." The doctor's words brought a glimmer of hope to Michael. Sarah was in there, somewhere, fighting her way back. When it was time to leave, the girls reluctantly said goodbye to their mother, each giving her a gentle kiss on the cheek. "We'll come back tomorrow, Mommy," Emma promised. "And we'll bring more drawings," Grace added. Michael gently ushered them out of the room but stopped at the door. "Could you wait a minute? I need to tell your mum something." The twins nodded, waiting in the hallway with a nurse. Returning to Sarah's side, Michael took her hand again. "Sarah," he began, his voice full of emotion, "I want you to know I'm taking care of the girls. I'll protect them, love them, do everything I can to keep them happy and safe until you come back to us, and I'll be here every day, waiting for you. So fight, Sarah. Fight with all you have. We're waiting for you." With one last squeeze of her hand, Michael joined the girls in the corridor. As they headed to the elevator, he made a silent promise to both himself and Sarah. He would unravel the mystery behind the accident, look after the twins as if they were his own, and do everything possible to bring Sarah back. The sun was setting as they left the hospital, casting a golden glow over the city. And though the road ahead was uncertain and full of challenges, Michael knew he wasn't alone in this journey. He had Emma and Grace, and together they would bring Sarah home. Days turned into weeks and weeks into a month. Michael Anderson's routine had become a delicate balance between his work responsibilities, daily hospital visits, and, above all, caring for Emma and Grace. On that sunny Saturday morning, Michael walked into room 307 at Central Hospital, carrying a fresh bouquet of daisies, Sarah's favorite. The nurses already knew him well, greeting him with kind smiles as he passed. "Good morning, Sarah," he said softly, placing the flowers in a vase by her bed. "I brought your favorites today." The steady rhythm of the monitors was his only reply, but Michael was used to it by now. He sat in the chair beside her bed, gently taking her hand as he always did. "The girls made some new drawings for you," he went on, pulling out a few sheets of paper from his folder. "Emma drew all of us at the park. She said it's for when you wake up and we can have a picnic. And Grace, well, she drew you as a superhero. She says you're the strongest of all because you've been fighting so hard." Michael hung the drawings on the wall, adding to the colorful mosaic of love and hope already decorating the room. Dr. Patel entered, his expression serious, but not devoid of compassion. "Good morning, Mr. Anderson. How is our patient today?" "Any changes?" Michael asked, the hope evident in his voice. The doctor examined the monitors and made a few notes. "There are small signs of improvement. Brain activity has been gradually increasing, and her reflexes are becoming more responsive. They're small steps, but significant ones." Michael nodded, clinging to every bit of good news. "And about her waking up?" Dr. Patel sighed softly. "Coma is unpredictable, Mr. Anderson. Each case is unique. Sarah is making progress, but we can't predict when or if she'll regain consciousness. The important thing is to maintain constant stimulation and positivity." After the doctor left, Michael turned his attention back to Sarah. "Hear that, Sarah? You're getting better. Keep fighting, we're all waiting." Back at the Anderson mansion, Margaret was in the kitchen with Emma and Grace, preparing chocolate chip cookies. Flour covered the counter and the girls' smiling faces. "Grandma Margaret," Grace asked, licking some dough off the spoon, "do you think Mommy will like the cookies when she wakes up?" Margaret smiled kindly, her heart clenching a bit. Over the last month, the twins had started calling her Grandma, and her affection for them grew daily. "I'm sure she'll love them, dear," she said, stroking the girls' hair. "She'll be very proud to see how you two are becoming such great little bakers." Emma, always the more serious one, looked thoughtfully at the cookie dough. "I wish we could take some to Mommy at the hospital." Margaret exchanged a quick glance with Michael, who had just come in. He stepped forward, kneeling between the two girls. "Hey, how about we do something special?" he suggested. "We can record a video of you making the cookies. Then, when Mommy wakes up, she can watch everything you learned." The twins' eyes lit up at the idea, and soon Michael had his phone out, filming them as they explained each step of the recipe. Later, after the girls were in bed, Michael and Margaret sat in the living room, each with a cup of tea. "How is she, really, Michael?" Margaret asked, worry clear in her voice. Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. "There are small improvements, but it's so slow, Mum." And seeing the girls day after day, waiting for their mum to wake up, it's heartbreaking. Margaret placed a reassuring hand on her son's arm. "You're doing an incredible job, dear. These girls, they've bonded with you in a way I've never seen before." "I've bonded with them too," Michael admitted, a small smile tugging at his lips. "It's strange, isn't it? Little more than a month ago, I had no idea they existed. Now I can't imagine my life without Emma and Grace." "Love does that," Margaret said wisely. "It catches us by surprise and changes everything." Michael nodded, thoughtful. "I just hope I'm doing enough. For them, for Sarah." "You're doing more than enough," Margaret assured him. "And remember, you're not in this alone. I'm here to help however I can." The following week, during one of his daily visits, Michael noticed something different. While reading one of Sarah's favorite books aloud, a new routine he had started, he saw a slight movement of her fingers. "Sarah," he called, leaning closer. "Sarah, can you hear me?" There was no response beyond that small movement, but it was enough to spark hope in his chest. Dr. Patel, called in a hurry, examined Sarah carefully. "This is very encouraging," he said, a genuine smile on his face. "It's a sign she may be emerging from deep coma." "What does that mean?" Michael asked anxiously. "It means we should intensify stimulation," the doctor explained. "Keep talking to her, reading, playing music, and get ready, Mr. Anderson. If Sarah keeps improving, we might see more movements, maybe even moments of awareness in the coming days or weeks." The news brought a rush of renewed hope and energy to Michael and the girls. Over the following days, they visited more often, bringing Sarah's favorite music, sharing stories, and filling her in on the details of their everyday life. One afternoon, while Grace softly sang "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," they all saw Sarah's eyes move beneath her closed lids. "Mommy?" Emma called, her voice trembling with emotion. "Mommy, we're here." Although Sarah didn't fully awaken that day, the event marked a turning point. The medical team noted a significant increase in her brain activity, and the small movements, though still slight, became more frequent. That night, after putting the twins to bed, Michael returned to the hospital. Sitting by Sarah's side, he held her hand, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "You're almost there, Sarah," he whispered. "Keep fighting. The girls are waiting for you. I'm waiting for you. And when you wake up, I promise we'll all be here, ready to bring you home." The gentle squeeze he felt on his hand might have been his imagination, but to Michael, it was a sign. A sign that no matter how long or hard the journey, Sarah was fighting her way back. And he would be there every step, fighting right alongside her. Morning light filtered through the blinds of the hospital room, creating dancing patterns on the white walls. Michael sat in his usual chair by Sarah's bed, flipping aimlessly through a magazine while waiting for the twins and Margaret to arrive for their daily visit. That was when he heard it. A soft sigh, different from the mechanical breathing he was used to. His eyes flew to Sarah's face and his heart nearly stopped. Her eyes were open. "Sarah," he whispered, scarcely daring to believe it. She blinked slowly, her green eyes so much like Grace's, struggling to focus. Her mouth moved, trying to form words. Michael quickly grabbed a cup of water with a straw, helping her drink a few sips. "Easy," he murmured. "Don't try to speak yet, I'll call the doctor." Minutes later, the room was bustling with activity. Dr. Patel and a team of nurses performed a series of tests while Michael watched anxiously from the corner. "Welcome back, Ms. Miller," Dr. Patel said with a warm smile. "You gave us quite a scare." Sarah looked around, confused, until her eyes settled on Michael. Recognition and surprise flickered across her face. Michael?" she managed, her voice raspy from disuse. He approached, tears threatening to spill from his eyes. "Yes, Sarah, it's me." The girls?" she asked, a sudden panic in her tone. "They're fine," Michael quickly assured her. "They're safe. My mother is bringing them for a visit soon." Relief washed over Sarah's face. Dr. Patel interjected kindly, "Ms. Miller, I know you have many questions, but we need to run some exams to assess your condition. Mr. Anderson, if you could give us a few minutes." Michael nodded, reluctant to leave Sarah's side, but understanding it was necessary. He stepped into the hallway, immediately calling Margaret to share the news of Sarah's awakening. When he was finally allowed back into the room, Sarah looked more alert, though still visibly exhausted. How long?" she asked as soon as he sat down. "Just over 6 weeks," Michael answered softly. "You had a car accident, Sarah. You've been in a coma since then." She closed her eyes, processing the information. When she opened them again, tears brimmed. "The girls must have been so scared." "They're incredibly strong," Michael said, pride lighting his face. "Like their mother. They've been staying with my mother and me this whole time." Sarah stared at him, perplexed. You took care of them. But how?" Michael took a steadying breath. "I found them by chance, Sarah. They were alone, scared. I couldn't just leave them. And when I found out they were your daughter, well, it felt like destiny bringing us together." Sarah took this in silently. Finally, she spoke. "Thank you, Michael, for looking after them. I don't know how to thank you enough." "There's no need," he assured her. "They're amazing kids, Sarah. You've done a wonderful job raising them." A small smile played on her lips, but it was soon replaced by worry. "Michael, there's so much you don't know. So many things have happened since we drifted apart," Michael finished softly. "I know, and I want to hear everything, Sarah, when you're ready." She nodded, hesitant. "It's a long story. We have time," he assured her. Sarah took a deep breath as if gathering her courage. "After you left for Europe, I found out I was pregnant." Michael felt like he'd been punched in the gut. "Pregnant? But why didn't you tell me?" "I tried," Sarah said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I called, I emailed. But you were so busy with your new life, new friends. And then I got that photo." Michael frowned, confused. "What photo?" "You, with that blonde girl. You looked so happy. I didn't want to ruin your life. Realization hit Michael like lightning. The photo with a classmate at a party. He remembered sending it to Sarah, telling her about his new friends. He had never imagined she would see it differently. "Oh, Sarah," he murmured, taking her hand. "She was just a friend. There was never anyone else but you." Sarah sobbed quietly. "I was so foolish, so proud. I decided to raise the girls on my own, that I didn't need anyone. But it was so hard, Michael, so lonely." Michael felt his heart break. All those lost years, all that pain because of one misunderstanding. "I'm here now," he said firmly, "and I'm not leaving. I want to help, Sarah. I want to be part of your lives, if you'll let me." Sarah looked at him, a mix of hope and fear in her eyes. "It's not that simple, Michael. There are complications." Before he could ask what she meant, they heard excited voices in the hallway. Emma and Grace burst into the room, followed closely by Margaret. "Mommy!" they cried in unison, running to the bed. Sarah opened her arms, tears of joy streaming down her face as she embraced her daughters. "My loves, I missed you so much." Michael stood back, his heart overflowing at the sight. Margaret approached, placing a supportive hand on his shoulder. As the girls chattered away, telling Sarah everything that had happened, Michael noticed the look of gratitude on Sarah's face whenever her eyes met his. There was still so much left unsaid, so many loose ends. But at that moment, seeing them all together, he felt a spark of hope. The path ahead would be difficult. Sarah clearly had secrets, that much was obvious, and adjusting their lives after so many years apart wouldn't be easy. But watching Emma and Grace so happy to have their mother back, Michael knew it would all be worth it. When his eyes met Sarah's again, he saw in them a reflection of his own feelings. Fear of the unknown, yes, but also a flicker of that old love, never truly forgotten. "One step at a time," he murmured, mostly to himself. Sarah, as though she had heard him, gave a small nod. It was a start. And for Michael, it was more than enough for now. The morning sun bathed the porch of the Anderson mansion, where Sarah sat in a wheelchair, watching Emma and Grace play in the garden. It had been a week since she'd been discharged from the hospital, and every day brought fresh challenges and small victories. Michael stepped out onto the porch, carrying a steaming cup of chamomile tea. "I thought you might like this," he said, handing Sarah the cup with a kind smile. "Thanks," she murmured, her eyes never leaving the girls. "It still feels strange to see them so at ease here." Michael followed her gaze. Emma was helping Grace climb a small tree, their laughter echoing across the yard. "They're resilient," he commented. "And they've adapted incredibly well, considering everything." Sarah nodded, a mix of pride and worry etched on her face. "They look so happy, almost as if they belong here," Michael offered gently. Sarah looked at him, her eyes full of conflicting emotions. "Yes, and that scares me a little." Michael took a seat beside her. "Sarah, I know this is sudden for you. Going from raising them alone to, well, all this," he gestured around, indicating the mansion and the new family dynamic. "It must be overwhelming." "It is," she admitted, "but it's also comforting in a way, seeing how everyone cares about them, how you care about them." Their eyes met, and for a moment it felt as though the intervening years had vanished. Michael felt his heart speed up, remembering the love they once shared. "Mommy, Michael!" Grace's voice broke the moment. "Come see what we found." Sarah started to rise, but Michael gently stopped her. "Let me help," he offered, positioning himself behind the wheelchair. As he wheeled her across the garden, Sarah couldn't help but notice how Michael's hands were both gentle and strong. It was a constant reminder of how much he had changed, no longer the boy she knew, but a mature, reliable man. The girls led them to a fallen bird's nest under a tree. 3 tiny blue eggs lay inside, miraculously unbroken. "Can we take care of them?" Emma asked, her eyes shining with hope. Michael knelt down beside them. "Actually, the best thing to do is put the nest back in the tree. The mother bird is probably looking for them." Sarah watched in admiration as Michael patiently explained why they shouldn't interfere with nature. He helped the girls find a sturdy branch and carefully replaced the nest. "Now we can watch from a distance," he suggested. "Maybe in a few days we'll see the chicks hatch." The girls agreed excitedly, already making plans for a watch post. Back on the porch, Sarah couldn't help but comment, "You're great with them." Michael blushed slightly. "They make it easy. They're incredible kids, Sarah. You've done an amazing job raising them." Sarah felt tears well up in her eyes. "Thank you. But seeing them with you, it's like they're complete in a way they never were before." Michael knelt beside her wheelchair, taking her hand. "Sarah, I know there's a lot still unsaid between us. So many lost years, so many misunderstandings. But I want you to know I'm here. For you, for them. Whatever you need." Sarah squeezed his hand, emotion constricting her throat. "Michael, Sarah. Michael." Margaret's voice interrupted them. "Lunch is ready. Could you bring the girls?" The moment passed, but something had changed. A bridge had begun to form across the gap of lost years. During lunch, Sarah watched the way the girls interacted with Margaret and Michael. It was as if they'd always been a family. Grace excitedly recounted their discovery of the bird's nest, while Emma discussed a book she was reading with Michael. "So, dear," Margaret addressed Sarah, "how are you feeling today?" Sarah smiled genuinely. "Better every day." "Thank you for everything, Margaret. Your kindness. I don't know how to repay it." Margaret waved away the thanks. "Nonsense. You're family now." The word family echoed in Sarah's mind. After years of struggle and solitude, she suddenly found herself surrounded by so much love and support. Later that night, after the girls were in bed, Sarah found Michael in the library. He was flipping through an old photo album. "What are you looking at?" she asked, rolling her wheelchair closer. Michael smiled, showing her a photo. It was of the two of them at their high school prom. "Remember that night?" Sarah laughed softly. "How could I forget? You stepped on my feet all through the first dance." "Hey, I got better after that," Michael protested, laughing. For a moment, they fell silent, lost in memories. "Michael," Sarah finally said, her voice serious, "we need to talk about the future. About the girls, about us." He nodded, shutting the album. "I know, Sarah, I don't want to pressure you. I know all this is sudden and complicated, but I want you to know I'm committed to you, to the girls, to the idea of us being a family, if that's what you want." Sarah felt her heart race. "It's scary," she admitted. "For so long, it was just me and the girls. And now you have me and my mum," Michael finished softly. "I know it's a big change, but we can take it slow, one day at a time." Sarah lifted her hand, gently touching Michael's cheek. "You've always been patient with me," she murmured. Michael leaned into her touch. "And I always will be," he promised. In that moment, something shifted between them. The years apart, the hurts of the past, they all seemed less important compared to the possibility of a future together. "One day at a time," Sarah agreed, a small smile tugging at her lips. As the night wore on, Sarah and Michael continued talking, reminiscing about the past and tentatively planning the future. The challenges were many: Sarah's recovery, the girls' adjustment, the secrets yet to be revealed. But for the first time in years, both felt a genuine hope taking root in their hearts. The family they were forming was unexpected and unconventional, but it was theirs. And together they would face whatever the future held. The sound of the doorbell echoed through the Anderson mansion on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Michael, who was helping Emma with her homework in the living room, looked up, puzzled. They weren't expecting anyone. "I'll get it," Sarah said, now able to move around with the aid of a cane. Her recovery was slow but steady. Michael heard the front door open, followed by Sarah's shocked gasp. Alarmed, he got up quickly. "Sarah, are you all right?" he called, heading for the foyer. The scene he found made his heart pound. Sarah stood stock still, pale as a ghost, staring at a tall, well-dressed man at the door. The stranger glanced from Sarah to the twins, who had gathered behind Michael, curiosity shining in their eyes. "Hello, Sarah," the man said, his voice trembling with emotion. "It's been a long time." Sarah seemed unable to speak, her hand gripping the cane so tightly her knuckles whitened. "Who are you?" Michael demanded, positioning himself protectively beside her. The man tore his gaze from Sarah to Michael, his penetrating blue eyes assessing him. "James Carter," he introduced himself, extending a hand. "And you must be Michael Anderson." Automatically, Michael shook the offered hand, his mind racing. The name meant nothing to him, but Sarah's reaction indicated this was no casual acquaintance. "Mummy," Grace called, her voice small and confused. "Who is this man?" The question seemed to break Sarah from her trance. "Girls, why don't you go play in the garden for a minute? The grown-ups need to talk." Emma, ever perceptive, shot a suspicious look at James before taking Grace's hand and leading her outside. "Come in," Sarah finally said to James, her voice shaky. Once in the living room, an uneasy silence fell. Sarah sat heavily on the sofa, Michael at her side, while James took an armchair opposite them. "What are you doing here, James?" Sarah finally asked. James leaned forward, his gaze fixed on the twins through the window. "I came because Sarah, I have to know, those girls, are they mine?" The question fell like a bombshell. Michael felt as though the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. "What?" he exclaimed, incredulous. Sarah closed her eyes, anguish crossing her features. "Michael, Let me explain," James interrupted, his voice calm but laden with emotion. "Sarah and I were involved for a few months after you went to Europe. Michael, it was intense but brief. We broke up and lost contact." Michael jumped to his feet, unable to stay still. "Sarah, is that true?" Sarah opened her eyes, tears shimmering. "Yes, James and I got involved after I lost touch with you. I was hurt, confused. When I heard about the accident," James continued, "I was shocked. And then I heard about 4-year-old twins. The possibility that I might be their father. I had to know." Michael felt the world spin again. All the assumptions he had made, all his plans for the future, suddenly felt as though they were crumbling. "How can you just show up like this?" Michael asked, his voice hoarse with emotion. "After all these years?" James ran a hand through his hair, visibly agitated. "I know it's sudden, but understand I only just found out about this possibility. I couldn't ignore it." Sarah sobbed silently. "James, you can't just appear and turn the girls' lives upside down. They don't even know about you." "I understand that," James said gently. "I'm not here to cause problems, but if there's a chance they're my daughters, I can't just walk away. They deserve to know the truth, don't you think?" Michael remained silent, his mind a whirlwind of anger, sadness, and confusion. "What exactly do you want, James?" he finally asked, surprisingly calm. "I want to find out if I'm really their father," James answered. "And if I am, I want the chance to know them, to be part of their lives somehow. I'm not here to take them from you. I know I don't have that right." Sarah let out a bitter laugh. "And you think it's that simple?" "No," James admitted. "I know it's complicated, but everyone deserves the truth." "Enough," Michael intervened, his voice firm. "This isn't getting us anywhere. James, I think you should leave now. We all need time to process this." James nodded slowly, rising. "I understand. Here's my card. Please contact me when you're ready to talk. And Sarah, I'm sorry for showing up like this, but I had to know." When the door closed behind James, silence filled the house again. Sarah buried her face in her hands, her shoulders trembling with sobs. Michael sat beside her, his own heart breaking, but knowing she needed him now more than ever. "What are we going to do?" he asked quietly. Sarah lifted her tear-stained face. "I don't know. How are we supposed to tell the girls? How can we change everything they've always believed?" At that moment, as if summoned by the conversation, Emma and Grace ran into the living room. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Grace asked, alarmed. Emma, ever more observant, looked from Sarah to Michael. Did that man do something bad? Michael and Sarah exchanged glances. The moment they feared had arrived sooner than expected. Girls, Sarah began, her voice trembling, there's something very important we need to talk about with you. As the twins settled onto the sofa between Sarah and Michael, the weight of the upcoming revelation hung heavily in the air. The family they'd started to build was about to face its greatest challenge yet, and no one knew how they would emerge on the other side. The silence in the Anderson living room was almost tangible. Sarah, seated on the sofa with Emma and Grace on either side, took a deep breath, trying to summon the courage she needed. Michael stood by the fireplace, his expression a mixture of worry and silent support. Girls, Sarah began, her voice quivering, remember how we always said families can be different. Some kids have one dad, some have two, and some don't have one at all. The twins nodded, their large eyes fixed on their mother. Well, Sarah continued, it turns out you might have a father you haven't met yet. Emma frowned. But what about Michael? Michael's heart clenched at the child's innocent question. Sarah shot him a quick look before turning back to the girls. Michael is very important to us, honey. He loves you both very much. But a long time ago, before you were born, I met a man named James. Grace's eyes went wide. The man who came here today? Sarah nodded. Yes, that's him. James and we dated for a while. And there's a possibility he's your biological father. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma, always the sharper one, was the first to speak. So, Michael isn't our dad. The pain in the girl's voice broke everyone's hearts. Michael stepped forward, kneeling in front of them. Emma, Grace, he said softly, I love you both more than anything in the world. That won't change, no matter what happens. Okay? The girls nodded, though they still seemed confused and frightened. What happens now? Grace asked in a small voice. Sarah exchanged a look with Michael before answering. Well, to know for sure if James is your father, we have to do a special test called a DNA test. Here it's like a scientific investigation to find out the truth. Over the next few weeks, tension gripped the house. The DNA test was done, and the wait for the results felt interminable. James kept his distance, respecting the family's space, but his presence loomed like a shadow over them all. Finally, the envelope arrived. Sarah, Michael, and James met at an attorney's office to open the results. The results indicate, the attorney read in a monotone voice, a 99.9% probability that James Carter is the biological father of Emma and Grace Miller. It was as though time stood still. Sarah closed her eyes, a mix of relief and apprehension on her face. James let out a shaky breath, tears shining unshed. Michael, meanwhile, felt as if the floor had vanished from beneath his feet. What do we do now? Sarah asked, her voice low. The attorney cleared his throat. Well, legally, Mr. Carter has paternal rights. However, given the unique situation, I suggest the three of you discuss and reach a co-parenting agreement that serves the children's best interests. The next few days were filled with long, emotional discussions. James expressed his desire to be involved in the girls' lives, but he also acknowledged the vital role Michael played. I don't want to take anything away from you, James said one evening, seated at the Anderson kitchen table with Sarah and Michael. I just want the chance to know my daughters, to love them. Michael, still struggling with his own emotions, surprised everyone with his response. The girls deserve to know about their origins, about you. But I want to make one thing clear. They are my daughters too in my heart. I'm not giving that up. Sarah squeezed Michael's hand, tears in her eyes. We'd never ask you to. Slowly, a plan began to form. James would be gradually introduced into the girls' lives as a special family friend before the full truth was explained. Michael would remain central to their daily routines, with Sarah and James working together to create a healthy co-parenting environment. One evening, after the girls were in bed, Sarah found Michael on the porch, gazing thoughtfully at the stars. What are you thinking about? She asked softly, joining him. Michael was silent for a moment before responding. How unpredictable life can be. A few months ago, I didn't even know I had daughters. Now I can't imagine my life without them. And yet everything changed again, Sarah finished for him. He nodded. But you know something. Despite everything, I don't regret any of it. I love those girls, Sarah, and I love you. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat at his words. Michael, He turned to face her, his eyes filled with determination. I know we have a long road ahead. It'll be complicated, but I want you to know, I'm here. For you, for the girls. We'll face this together. Sarah felt warm tears spill over as she leaned in to hug him. Under the starry sky, they silently reaffirmed their commitment to each other and to the family they had formed. The future remained uncertain, full of challenges and adjustments, but with love, patience, and understanding, they would face each obstacle, one day at a time. The family they had. The months following James's revelation as the twins' biological father were an emotional roller coaster for everyone involved. The Anderson mansion, once a haven of newfound peace, now buzzed with nervous energy as everyone adapted to the new reality. On a sunny Saturday morning, Michael watched from the porch while James played tag in the yard with Emma and Grace. The girls' laughter filled the air, mingling with the excited shouts of, "Got you, Daddy James!" Michael felt a familiar pang of jealousy, but he took a deep breath, remembering the many therapy sessions he had attended, learning to cope with the situation. Sarah joined him, offering a cup of coffee. "You okay?" she asked softly, following his gaze. Michael nodded slowly. "I'm getting there. It's good to see the girls happy." Sarah smiled, taking his hand. "They're happy because of you too. You're just as important to them as James." Her words were a soothing balm to Michael's heart. In recent weeks, he had wrestled with feelings of inadequacy and fear of being replaced. But gradually, with Sarah's support and therapy, he began to see the situation through new eyes. James, for his part, was making an effort to integrate into the twins' lives respectfully and slowly. He started with short, supervised visits, always mindful not to overstep the boundaries that Sarah and Michael had set. One afternoon, after one such visit, James approached Michael in the study. "Got a minute?" he asked, hesitating slightly. Michael gestured to a chair, curious and a bit anxious. James sat, visibly nervous. "I just wanted to say thank you," he began, "for being so understanding, for letting me be part of the girls' lives. I know this hasn't been easy for you." Michael was taken aback by James's honesty. "It hasn't been easy for any of us," he admitted, "but the girls come first." James nodded earnestly. "Exactly, and I want you to know I deeply respect the role you have in their lives. I'm not here to replace you, Michael. I'm hoping we can, be partners in this somehow." The offer of partnership startled Michael. He studied James for a moment, seeing not a rival, but a man genuinely trying to do the right thing. "I think we can work on that," Michael finally replied, extending his hand. Their handshake sealed a turning point in the family's dynamic. In the weeks that followed, a new routine emerged. James joined the family for dinner twice a week and spent one weekend day with the twins. Michael maintained his central role in their daily life, helping with homework, telling bedtime stories, and being the steadfast father figure he had always been. Emma and Grace, initially confused by the situation, began to adapt with the resilience typical of children. They loved the extra attention and the love they now received from all the adults in their lives. One night, as Michael tucked the girls into bed, Grace asked sleepily, "Michael, you're still our dad, right? Even with Daddy James?" Michael's heart swelled. "Of course, a princess. I'll always be your dad no matter what." From the other side of the bed, Emma added, "It's like we have two dads and a mum. We're really lucky, huh?" Michael smiled, kissing each of their foreheads. "Yes, you are, and we're very lucky to have you." Closing the door to their room, Michael found Sarah in the hallway, tears in her eyes. "Did you hear that?" he asked softly. Sarah nodded, hugging him. "They're right, we're all so lucky." Downstairs, James was getting ready to leave after the family dinner. Michael walked him to the door, something that would have been unthinkable just a few months earlier. "Thanks for dinner," James said. "And well, for everything." Michael nodded. "The girls loved having you here. Maybe next weekend we can all go to the park together. They've been talking about paddle boats." James's smile lit up his face. That would be great. Really great. When the door closed behind James, Michael felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in months. The situation was still far from perfect. There were doubts and insecurities, but they were making progress, adapting, growing together. Later that night, lying in bed beside Sarah, Michael reflected on the journey of the past few months. "You know," he said softly, "I never imagined my life would be like this. But I wouldn't change it." Sarah turned to him, her eyes shining in the dark. "Me neither. Thank you for being so amazing through all this, Michael. I don't know what we'd do without you." Michael pulled her closer, kissing her gently. "We're a family," he murmured. "Maybe not conventional, but a family. And together, we can face anything." As they drifted off to sleep, the Anderson mansion was quiet, wrapped in a sense of contentment. Upstairs, Emma and Grace slept peacefully, their dreams filled with paddle boats and picnics at the park, with both their dads and their mom. The journey of acceptance and growth was far from over, but the foundation of love, respect and understanding they had built promised a bright future for this unique and special family. Autumn had arrived in the city, painting the trees gold and red. In the Anderson mansion, the air crackled with anticipation and a certain nervous energy that radiated mostly from Michael. For weeks he had been planning this moment, discreetly consulting Margaret, James, X, and even the twins. The ring, a delicate piece of white gold with a single diamond, weighed in his pocket like a secret waiting to be revealed. Sarah had left early for a routine checkup, giving Michael the time he needed for final preparations. The twins, aware of the plan, could hardly contain their excitement. "Michael, can I see the ring again?" Grace asked, hopping around him as he set the dinner table. Michael grinned, pulling the small velvet box from his pocket. "Last time, Princess. But remember, it's our secret until Mommy arrives, right?" Emma, helping place flowers in the center of the table, nodded solemnly. "We won't tell. Pinky promise." The sound of a car in the driveway made everyone freeze. "That's her," Grace whispered dramatically. Michael drew a deep breath, his heart pounding. "All right, girls. Remember the plan." The twins dashed into position, attempting to look casual and failing adorably, as Sarah walked in. "Hello, my loves," Sarah called, surprised by the quiet greeting. "Is everything okay?" Michael appeared in the dining room doorway, a nervous smile on his face. "Welcome back. How was the checkup?" Sarah raised an eyebrow, clearly sensing something was up. "It went fine. What are you three up to?" "Nothing," the twins chorused, their voices too loud to be believable. Michael chuckled softly, extending his hand to Sarah. "Come on, we have a surprise for you." Intrigued, Sarah let Michael guide her into the dining room. She gasped when she saw the elegantly set table, candles lit, and the delicious aroma of her favorite dish filling the air. "What's all this?" she asked, clearly touched. Michael led her to her seat, the twins watching anxiously. "Well, we have something important to ask you," he began, his voice shaking slightly. Sarah looked from Michael to the girls, confused. "We?" Emma stepped forward, holding a small bouquet of flowers. "Mommy," she said earnestly, "we love you very much." Grace joined her sister, holding a handmade card. "And we love Michael too." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, still unsure what was happening. Michael knelt beside Sarah, taking her hand. "Sarah," he began, his voice full of emotion, "these last few months have been an incredible journey. Finding you again, meeting the girls, it was as if my life finally made sense." He paused, pulling the velvet box from his pocket. Sarah gasped, finally realizing what was happening. "I love you," Michael continued. "I love our daughters, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you if you'll have me." Opening the box to reveal the ring, he asked, "Sarah Miller, will you marry me?" The silence that followed felt like an eternity. The twins held their breath, eyes wide in anticipation. Sarah, tears streaming down her cheeks, finally found her voice. "Oh, Michael," she whispered. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." The room erupted in cheers. The twins jumped up and down as Michael Kai, with trembling hands, slipped the ring onto Sarah's finger before pulling her into a passionate kiss. "Are we going to be a real family now?" Grace asked, her eyes shining. Sarah pulled the girls into a tight hug. "Sweetheart, we've always been a real family. This just makes it official." Michael joined the group embrace, his heart overflowing. "And you too," he said to the twins. "If it's all right with you, I'd love to adopt you officially, become your legal dad, as well as a dad at heart." Emma and Grace exchanged looks before shouting in unison, "Yes!" The celebration continued late into the night. Margaret arrived soon after, bringing champagne and grape juice for the girls. Joy was palpable, filling every corner of the mansion. The next day, as Sarah and Margaret excitedly discussed wedding plans, Michael realized there was one more person he needed to speak with. He called James and inviting him for coffee. Meeting at a local cafe, Michael could sense the tension. James looked apprehensive, clearly wondering why he'd been called. "So," James began, fiddling nervously with his cup, "what was so urgent?" Michael took a deep breath. "James, I proposed to Sarah last night. She said yes." Heavy silence followed. James stared at his cup for a long moment, then looked up. To Michael's surprise, a genuine smile crossed his face. "Congratulations," James said sincerely. "You both deserve happiness." Michael let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Thank you, but there's more. I want to adopt the girls legally." James nodded slowly. "I figured this day would come," he said quietly. "Michael, I'll be honest, part of me hurts to think about that. They're my biological daughters." Michael braced himself to argue, but James lifted a hand, stopping him. "But," James continued, "over the past months, I've seen how much you love them, how you protect and care for them. You're their father in every way that matters." Unshed tears shone in James's eyes. "I love Emma and Grace, and because I love them, I want what's best for them. And what's best for them is to have you as their legal father, as well as a father of the heart." Michael felt a lump in his throat. "James, I don't know what to say." James reached across the table, gripping Michael's arm. "Say you'll keep being the amazing dad you've been. Say you'll love and protect our girls with everything you have. Always," Michael promised, his voice thick with emotion. The two men regarded each other, a silent understanding passing between them. It wasn't a conventional situation, but it was theirs. And at the center of it all were two little girls who now had more love than they ever imagined. That night, as the family gathered for dinner, an unmistakable feeling of contentment filled the air. Sarah glowed with her engagement ring. The twins chatted excitedly about being flower girls, and Michael watched it all with a full heart. Later, after tucking the girls in, Michael found Sarah on the porch, gazing up at the stars. "What are you thinking, Mrs. Anderson-to-be?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her. Sarah leaned into him. "About how unpredictable life can be. A year ago, I was alone, struggling to raise the girls, and now I have everything I ever dreamed of." Michael kissed the top of her head. "I love you, Sarah. You and the girls are my entire world." Sarah turned in his arms, looking into his eyes. "And you're ours," she said quietly. "Our family may not be conventional, but it's perfect for us." Sarah turned in his arms, looking into his eyes. "And you are ours. Our family might not be conventional, but it's perfect for us." As they kissed under the starry sky, Michael knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. With unconditional love as their foundation, their family could overcome any challenge. Morning dawned bright and radiant, as though the sky itself was celebrating Michael and Sarah's wedding day. The Anderson mansion was abuzz from the early hours, with decorators, florists, and planners scurrying around to put the finishing touches on the ceremony that would take place in the garden. In the master bedroom, Sarah sat before the mirror, watching Margaret arrange delicate white flowers in her hair. Her dress, an elegant yet simple lace design, flowed gracefully around her. "Are you nervous, dear?" Margaret asked, meeting Sarah's gaze in the reflection. Sarah smiled, a mixture of anxiety and joy shining in her eyes. "A bit, but mostly, I'm happy. It feels like everything is finally falling into place." A soft knock on the door interrupted them. Emma and Grace entered, wearing pastel lilac dresses that made them look like little fairies. "Mommy," Grace exclaimed, "you look so pretty." Emma, always more observant, noticed the emotion in her mother's eyes. "Are you okay, Mom?" Sarah opened her arms, inviting the girls into a hug. "I'm just so happy to have you both here with us on such a special day." On the other side of the mansion, Michael was adjusting his tie for what felt like the 100th time, his reflection in the mirror revealing equal parts nerves and excitement. "Relax," came a voice from the doorway. James entered, already wearing his groomsman's suit. "You look great." Michael turned, gratitude in his smile. Having James in the wedding, not just as a guest but playing an active role, was a testament to how far their lives had become intertwined in recent months. "Thanks for being here," Michael said sincerely. "It means a lot to me, to all of us." James shrugged, but his smile was genuine. "We're a family now, aren't we? Even if it's a bit unconventional." They both chuckled, the initial tension replaced by a comfortable camaraderie. "Are the girls excited?" Michael asked. James nodded, his eyes lighting up with paternal pride. "They could barely stay still while I helped with their shoes. Grace is convinced she's a real princess today." Michael smiled, his heart brimming with love. "Well, she's not exactly wrong. They're our little princesses." A gentle knock on the door announced the wedding coordinator, informing them it was time. Outside, the garden had been transformed into a fairy tale setting. Rows of white chairs stood on either side of an aisle strewn with flower petals, leading to an arch covered in blooms. Guests were already in their seats, murmuring in anticipation. Michael took his place under the arch, James at his side as his groomsman. His heart pounded when the music began to play. First came Emma and Grace, sprinkling flower petals as they walked, their radiant smiles lighting up the entire garden. Tears prickled Michael's eyes as he watched them, so grown and beautiful. And then, there she was, Sarah, radiant in her white gown, moving slowly down the petal-strewn aisle. Their eyes locked. And at that moment, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. When Sarah reached the altar, Michael took her hands, unable to hide his smile. "You look absolutely stunning," he whispered. The officiant began the ceremony, but Michael hardly registered the words. All he could focus on was Sarah's face, on the twins holding the rings, and on the overwhelming love enveloping them. "Michael and Sarah have chosen to write their own vows," the officiant announced. "Michael, please begin." Michael took a steadying breath, his gaze never leaving Sarah's. "Sarah, when we found each other again after all these years, it felt like no time had passed. My heart recognized you instantly. And then I met Emma and Grace, and my world grew in ways I never thought possible. The three of you are my home, my family, my everything. I promise to love, protect, and care for you every day of my life. I promise to be not only a devoted husband, but also a loving father. Our path here might not have been traditional, but it's ours, and I wouldn't change a thing." Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks as she began her vows. "Michael, you came into our lives like a beam of light in a dark moment. You didn't just love me. You loved our daughters as though they were yours from the very start. Your generosity, your understanding, and your unconditional love have healed us in ways you can't imagine. I promise to be your partner, your friend, your confidant, and your love for all the days ahead. Together with our girls, we'll build the family we always dreamed of." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden when the officiant finally said, "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Michael pulled Sarah into a passionate kiss as the guests applauded and the twins jumped in excitement. The reception that followed was a celebration of love and family in all its forms. James offered a heartfelt toast, thanking Michael for his love and dedication to the girls and promising to always be part of their extended family. Margaret, tears in her eyes, embraced Sarah. "Welcome officially to the family, dear. Though to me, you've been my daughter for a long time." As the evening wore on, Michael noticed the photographer setting up for the official family photo. Smiling, he called James over. "Come on," he said. "You're part of this too." The photo captured a truly special moment, Michael and Sarah at the center,